Everyone, thanks for coming today. Today we're going to go over getting started with CMMC for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. And the intent of this topic is over the basics, expecting, and it really is, if you're new to trying to get started with CMMC, just lay out what it is and how you can move forward. So we're looking forward to this. Some of you may have seen it was scheduled for an hour, but we really think it's going to be about 40 minutes, depending on the, Q&A. Let me introductions. I'm Ron Tosto. I'm the CEO for Servadus. I'm a retired Navy veteran and a QSA for 10 years as of this year. A Swift assessor and, of course, a registered practitioner for CMMC, and have really experience across multiple global industries, small, medium business, as well as large enterprises. So, and with me today is Renee. So Renee is a retired police officer. She's also a registered practitioner. She's our subject matter expert in CMMC here at Servadus. And she's also in Swift, has her ISO 27001 and CS SP. And we look forward to hearing from with those introductions, let's go over the housekeeping a little bit. So participants on mics, your mics and cameras are turned off, but you can use the QA during the session. We'll watch it, and if we don't get it during the session, we'll try to get it at the end, and if not, then we'll make sure we respond to you later by email. And then other than that, I encourage you, if you don't have something to drink, grab a cup of coffee or whatever you would like. And then, of course, then turn on your Do Not Disturb so you can actually focus on the webinar. And with that, I think we're going to jump right in. So we'll, sorry, I forgot the agenda. So today we're going to talk about CMMC and the levels, the NIST to CMMC, reporting, SPRS, and then, of course, separation, and then we'll have the conclusion for today. And then with that, I think we'll jump in with Renee. And so it's off to you, ma'am.
So are you going to talk about what is CMMC? Manufacturers and suppliers who contract with the U.S. Department of Defense, the DoD, will be required to comply with these rules that make up the CMMC 2.0. This includes protecting federal contract information, FCI, and controlled unclassified information. Should do this. There we go. That's better. Now I have control of the slides. This includes, can you still hear me though?
Yeah.
This includes protecting federal contract information, FCI, and controlled unclassified information, CUI. FCI, federal contract information, is data not intended for public release that is provided by or generated for the government under contract to develop or deliver a product or service to the government. CUI is defined as the information the government owns or creates, or that a firm or organization possess or creates for the government that needs to be safeguarded and protected, using the information security controls required under government laws, regulations, and policies. These rules that comprise the CMMC 2.0 were originally expected to be published this spring. CMMC 2.0 is anticipated to receive an interim final rule by the DoD in March 2023 for publication in the Federal Register. This type of rule becomes effective immediately on publication. This would give manufacturers that contract with the DoD 60 days to comply with the new cybersecurity rules. Instead, the requirements for CMMC 2 are anticipated to be published as a proposed rule. This includes a 12-month review and comment period, after which the DoD revise the proposed rule, abandon the proposal, or move forward to the final rule stage of the rulemaking process. This could give manufacturers at least another year to implement the proposed rules. The delay has lulled some manufacturers into thinking they have plenty of time, but that kind of thinking can put a company way behind or out of the race. Level 1 is the first of 3 tiers that make up the CMMC 2.0. This base level contains 17 required security practices that, if implemented correctly, should protect contractors from a basic attempt from hackers to infiltrate their systems. Level 1 is made up of 15 requirements from the FAR Clause 52.204.21 and 2 requirements from the National Institute of Standards Special Publication 800-171. The Federal Acquisition Register, or FAR, is a Department of Defense regulation that specifies the rules for basic safeguarding of a covered contract information systems. I will cover more about NIST a little later. Level 1 requires contractors to conduct a self-assessment each year to ensure these 17 requirements are properly in place and working. Contractors also will need a senior company official to supply an annual affirmation to accompany the self-assessment. Compliance with Level 1 will strengthen and develop the cybersecurity posture of contractors. Level 2 has a total of 110 practices from 14 domains. All Level 2 practices are based on NIST SP 800-171. Level 2 requirements will need to be met through a tri-annual third-party assessment. Certified third-party assessor organizations, or C3PAOs, will be conducting these assessments. Assessors will evaluate the implementation of these controls using NIST SP 800-171A and 2 of 3 evaluation methods. These can be either examine, which is reviewing of documentation like procedures, policies that is supplied as evidence that practices are compliant. Interview involves talking to personnel to discover, understand, and identify key features of the security posture, or physically testing systems and networks to measure compliance and adherence to company policies and procedures. Because assessors use NIST SP 800-171A, they will be looking at 320 assessment objectives derived from the 110 practices. Level 2 will further strengthen the security posture and lead to a more mature cybersecurity environment. Level 3, that is still under development, will have 110 plus practices based on the NIST SP 800-172. Level 3 will be the highest level and will be assessed triannually by government officials. CMMC 2.0 has 14 domains. A domain is a distinct set of or group of security practices, also called controls, which have similar attributes to each other. Here is just an overview of the 6 Level 1 domains and the added 8 domains for Level 2. Included in this list are the acronyms used for each domain. These you will see back in every practice header as an identifier. The list is AC, access control, IA, identification and authentication, MP, media protection, PE, physical protection, SC, systems and communication protection, SI, system and information integrity, AT, awareness and training, AU, audit and accountability, CM, configuration management, IR, incident response, MA, maintenance, PS, personnel security, RA, risk assessment, and SA, security assessment. To get started, contractors are advised to determine their current cybersecurity maturity level. There are many tools available to do such as self-assessments. Servadus can assist you in this through our easy-to-use GRC platform, 6 Clicks. We are urging you to plan ahead, as self-assessments are not as easy as they sound and take more time than usually anticipated. For instance, CMMC 2.0 rules could require you to demonstrate that the people responsible for your cybersecurity have certain experience, background, and education. Those background checks, training, and hiring initiatives could take more time than expected. If I am compliant with CMMC, am I compliant with NIST, I hear you ask? To answer this question, we first need to understand what NIST SP 800-171 specifies. The National Institute for Standards and Technology Special Publication 800-171 lays out the requirements for any non-federal agency that handles controlled unclassified information, CUI, or other sensitive federal information. It details how organizations should protect this information and contains administrative and technical requirements. First published in 2015, the goal is to strengthen the federal supply chain and ultimately protect national security as a whole. It was originally developed to provide guidance to the DFARS clause, the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, the original cybersecurity requirements from the DoD. The 800-171, as it's known, is made up of 110 controls divided into 14 control families, and it takes around 6 months to implement with third-party assistance. In addition to the 110 controls on how CUI is protected, there are 63 non-federal organization NFO controls in the NIST SP 800-171. Because CMMC is specifically for contractors working with our DoD, there is no need to include requirements on how NFO is handled. It is important to note that no certification proves compliance with this framework, but companies can attest to compliance requirements. The difference between NIST SP 800 and 171 and CMMC is that NIST SP 800-171 applies to non-federal agencies and contractors that handle CUI, and CMMC will apply to all contractors who want to do business with the Department of Defense. NIST SP 800-171 contains administrative and technical requirements for protecting CUI, while CMMC contains a set of best practices for safeguarding FCI and CUI. CMMC provides different levels of certification, each with its own set of requirements, and NIST SP 800-171 provides a comprehensive framework for protecting CUI, but no certification. In short, NIST SP 800-171 applies to non-federal agencies and contractors that handle CUI, contains administrative and technical requirements for protecting CUI, and provides a comprehensive framework for protecting CUI, but no certification. CMMC, in short, applies to all contractors who want to do business with the Department of Defense, and contains a set of best practices for safeguarding FCI and CUI, and provide different levels of certification, each with its own set of requirements. A CMMC maturity level designation means you have complied with the requirements for that level. There may be some security controls in that level that meet NIST standards, but you must have reached one of the higher maturity levels to have all the NIST controls in place. CMMC and NIST compliance are not equivalent. However, if you are NIST SP 800-171 compliant, becoming CMMC certified will be easy to accomplish. So you ask yourself, why do I need to be CMMC compliant? The DoD faced a low rate of NIST SP 800-171 compliance across the defense industrial base, the DIB, and the CMMC was created to remedy the issue of non-compliance by both contractors and their subcontractors. To sign a contract with the DoD, the defense contractors must have their cybersecurity status audited and certified by an independent third party, a certified third-party assessor organization, or C3PAO. The continuance of a DoD contract will also depend upon CMMC compliance. Therefore, organizations that do not obtain a CMMC certification will not be permitted to receive or share DoD information related to programs and projects. As for non-US based contractors, the DoD will maintain current cybersecurity requirements as defined by FAR 52.204-21 and DFARS 252.204-7012. The DoD continues to engage with international partners regarding necessary cybersecurity standards and will ensure that foreign companies that support US DoD are safeguarding FCI and CUI. Next, we will discuss the reporting of compliance. SPRS, the Supplier Performance Risk System, is the authoritative source for retrieving supplier and product PI performance information assessments for the DoD acquisition community. Your total score is uploaded in SPRS, not individual items, along with a date that you project to have all your security gaps closed. You should plan around 6 to 12 months to reach a perfect score. Once CMMC 2.0 is fully implemented, the DoD will have access to information and data relating to a company's assessment, including their assessment results and the final report. All self-assessment results will be stored on SPRS. CMMC certificates will be stored in the CMMC Enterprise Mission Assurance Support Services, or the EMAS database. The detailed results of a CMMC assessment will not be made public. However, CMMC certification results will be available publicly. Level 1 self-assessments has a score of 63. Level 2 assessments begin at 110 points with a low score of -203. The practices themselves are each worth 1, 3, or 5 points. There is no partial credit. The full point range, -203 to a perfect score of 110. Points are deducted for each control a company does not fully meet. It is essential to develop a system security plan, SSP, and a plans of action and milestones to address controls your company does not fully meet. Contractors are urged to keep an up-to-date and accurate SPRS score. If you are an organized company and DFARS -7012 compliant, you should have a score somewhere between 75 and 90. If you have some technology but are a little sparse on the policy side, you can find yourself in the 30 to 65 point range. If you have very little technology and an inexperienced or non-existent IT team, you are going to have a pretty low score of about 25 to 0. If you've mostly ignored compliance and regulatory requirements, you will be around -40. Lastly, if you have no vulnerability patching, no monitoring, no Active Directory structure running, it's going to be -150 or lower. So what is the latest news around CMMC? Stacey Bosyanik, the head of CMMC at the Department of Defense, has this to say about the CMMC program. There's a federal acquisition regulation rule that's going to be coming out that implements the National Institute of Standards and Technology Special Publication 800-171 and the 800-172, and it's going to go across all of federal government. CMMC is coming. It's not going to go away. The waiting is not going to make the pain any less. Bosyanik also said it's coming across of all federal government. You might as well get out in front of it and be one of the first. Will you, as a contractor, be ready? Reports continue to find that many DoD contractors aren't following NIST controls. Meanwhile, contractors continue to be targeted by hackers. The nature of cybersecurity threats is continuously evolving. The defense industrial base and other high-tech technology industries remain prime targets for hackers. These hackers increasingly focus on the supply chain of smaller businesses that supply key components and services to large defense contractors. Compared to when CMMC was just getting started, contractors are now more aware of cyber threats and the need to be compliant. Contractors are paying attention. After more than a decade of being a target of espionage and other nation-state threats, there's a better understanding of how cyber threats target the defense industrial base than there was 5 or 10 years ago. Next, Ron will discuss CMMC scope. Ron, up to you.
Yeah, thanks, Renee. So that's not a new concept, but we really wanted to make sure that we brought this up around segmentation and scoping. And so organizations that are PCI have critical infrastructure, understand from a technical perspective what it means to separate your pieces of data or operations from the others. And so really, this is just a couple of slides to highlight how this fits into the CMMC process. So it is mandatory. And so really we're going to talk from a high level of an organization that has a network that does various functions, right? Sure, you're going to have accounting, resources, your operations. And then when you get really in your operations, you can split the operations in both DoD and non-DoD components. And so this really gets into your division or your host unit for CMMC. And so really this division is what's isolated from the rest of your network. So if you think about a large network and then a smaller subsection of the network, it will be isolated. And this is done with a couple of different mechanisms between firewalls, managed switches, implementation of virtual LANs or VLANs, And then, of course, depending on the size of your company and how it operates, you may have supporting units, and this may be the equivalent of a managed service provider. So you have to take all these particular elements and decide between people, process, and between people and technology. Anything that processes, any person that processes, transmits, stores FCI data or CUI will fall under what is considered scope. And so some of the rules, and I'll just give one example, is if two computers are in the same division and one processes FCI and one does not, because they are in the same segment, they will both be in scope and have to follow all the rules under CMMC. And so this could be quite a challenge for those that are very small. If you are an organization that has only 2 people in it, you may have to actually have 3 computers, one for each person to do their non-DoD or CMMC work, and then having a separate machine that is isolated from the rest that would have your FCI data. And there's several ways this can be done, and really in this presentation, we're not going to talk about those pieces of how to done. Each company is unique, and so we have to really find out what is the right direction of where do you have the information, how do you process, how do you store that data. But what is important here in this is that there is a requirement for segmentation and then a review of what is in scope. And in particularly, while we're talking about processing, transmitting, and storing, it also really includes those devices that provide security. So where a firewall may not specifically process, transmit, or store, it is going to be the one that's making sure that the systems are isolated. And so there would be requiring a set of firewall rules and validations that go with that piece. And we go with that. And so we like to talk about more about this piece, but this would take an hour by itself to get into the details. It is important to understand that this is one of the first pieces that have to be in place to make sure that you can follow the controls that Renee talked about earlier. So really, in conclusion, this is what we hope for everybody to take away is be proactive with CMMC, achieve your compliance, even if today it is with your NIST 171, and make sure you're in position so you can land your DoD contract. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. If there are any questions, please let us know. We will provide that information to you separately. But until we see each other again, thanks for coming and have a wonderful week.